No worries, Whitney. Thank you for sharing. Is it Stephen? Is that or is it Stefan?
Even,
My sorry?
even.
Stephen. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Host revenue known employees. Okay. Great. Honey, what do you think? Should we go about one more minute and then kick off? Okay, that's what we'll do.
Sorry, runaway mouse, trying to unmute myself. Yeah, probably
That's okay.
just like another moment or two um, for folks to come in, but I'll also continue to keep an eye on it um, if anyone comes in a little after. So
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome, Rob. We're just putting in the chat industry, just a little bit about your business, industry, team size, revenue size, whatever you're comfortable with, how many years you've been in business, just something to give me an idea of sort of like the stage of business that you're in.
Sure.
Well, Marilis, that looks really interesting. I'd be so curious to hear more about your business. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share. And if more folks join, great. And if not, then we have lots of opportunity for Q&A. Okay, let's see.
so yeah, welcome to Thrive, y'all. Thrive in 25, another week. So we have Genevieve White here, and I'm gonna lob it on over to you. Go for it.
Okay, thanks, honey.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I see your chat there. Awesome. Okay, perfect. So, welcome everyone. This is From Founder to CEO, Building a Business That Runs Without You. Thank you for introducing yourselves in the chat. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. I am way more interested in dialogue than hearing myself talk. So always feel free to raise your hand or drop a note in the chat. Honey, please let me know if I miss anything. But I will try to keep an eye out. Let's see, my slides are not advancing. There we go. Okay, so I am a fractional chief operating officer. If you're not familiar with the term fractional, a fractional executive is a part-time team member on the org chart. We're not consultants. We are on the team. We can be temporary or permanent depending on the needs of the organization. Often will come in temporarily if you're in a growth period. So basically, when you're not ready to have that executive on full time, whether you're not at that phase in your business, or you're just not the kind of business that needs a full time COO, or whatever the executive role is, that is what a fractional does. Chief operating officer can vary anywhere from people and process managers to people development and coaching, organizational development. I'm more in the strategic advisor. That's kind of my sweet spot and how I usually work with folks. And about this time last year, when the elections results came in, I made the decision to fully work with historically marginalized communities. So that's solely the folks that I work with in my business. Let's see if I can get these slides to advance. I have been having this problem the last couple days. I switched over to Google Slides for this reason, and it still won't work. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Water resources and environmental consulting. Okay, right on, Rob. Let's try again. Maybe if I do it without my notes, can probably wing it. Okay, so the big question here, these are some examples of things that you may or may not be doing, but the big question here is why did you go into business in the first place? So a lot of people, um, they have something that they love and they want to just be doing that for themselves. They really love working with clients, for example, or they have an idea of wanting financial freedom or more time with their family. Uh, my last business I started because I felt like I had a calling that I needed to fill. I was a health coach and I felt like I needed to help people that didn't have access to healthcare. We go into business for all sorts of reasons, and what often ends up happening, especially if your business is successful, is you get sort of on this hamster wheel where all of a sudden the thing that you went into business for in the first place is no longer what you're receiving or how you're spending your time. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Those are the folks that I work with, and we will be able to dig into lots of opportunities around that. I'm going to be introducing a lot of books during this presentation. You'll probably be familiar with some of them. This is the first one, The E-Myth. If you aren't familiar with Michael Gerber, looks like Rob knows it. It's basically the idea that as an entrepreneur, you just sort of become like every seat on the org chart. Um, and this has been a really good guide for helping business owners that I've worked with kind of understand the position that they get themselves in when they get on like that hamster wheel. So if you're like working harder than ever, but hitting a ceiling, specifically a profit ceiling, or the number of people that you're able to serve, you're to take time off because things fall apart or they just stall out. You're making all the decisions. People are coming to you for, all the things, constantly interrupting you. You're constantly thinking about work, and it just kind of takes over your life. Um, Super typical. If that's the case that you're in, congratulations. You probably have a viable business. Now we just need to figure out how to get you out of this particular stage. Okay, when you're the bottleneck, everything flows through you. Every decision, every approval, everything lands on your desk or, on the phone or whatever the case may be for you. Everything slows down. Your team's constantly waiting for answers, and then your growth stalls. You also tend to lose team members because they get frustrated waiting for whatever it is that they need to move forward. And they don't feel like they get the trust that they would like to really have ownership for their role. Okay, so I just wanted to say really quick, this was built in Gamma, this slide deck. If you haven't used Gamma AI before, check it out. It's awesome. I'm not a good like visual presentation person. I created my prompts in a conversation with ChatGPT and then plugged it into Gamma. So I'm just saying that because Gamma 100% made up these statistics. But it's going to do a much better job than me putting a presentation together. For me, the point is the content, right? So ignore the statistics, but the point is real. Like lost revenue, 100%. That's hitting that profit ceiling, getting distracted with team members when you could be helping your clients, high turnover risk. Once you're in a situation where your team really feels like they have true ownership of their role, they're being held accountable, they're people who like accountability, your team members are going to feel really appreciated and they're going to stick around longer. And your workload is going to reduce, right? Because you're not doing 57 different things. You're just being the CEO. You're out there making those important relationships. You're in the marketplace, seeing like what's coming down the pipe. You're looking more at the horizon and less stuck in the weeds. So the truth is, when you hire people you trust and learn to trust your hires, business grows and so do you. That's one of the biggest steps for business owners is just that stepping back and trusting that your team has it. So the evolution of founder to CEO. When you're in the founder mode, you're doing all the work, you're constantly thinking, how do I solve this problem? And you're in the weeds. CEO mode is thinking strategy, that, what's on the horizon, where are we going, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we need to be aware of. What we're going to talk about today is that transition phase, building the systems and the structure that your business needs, starting to ask who can own this role. We're talking a lot about delegation, and then that will get you more into that CEO role where you can really be focusing on the future. So it's not about abandoning your business. It's about leading at a higher level. Okay, so this
I
slide
like
is
the
cut off.
I
Go
like the
ahead.
pictures, by the way.
Huh?
I like the pictures, by the way.
Oh, good. Well, that's 100% gamma.
They're kind of fresh, but they're not like some standard canned thing.
Yeah.
They just remind
Yeah.
me of the Jetsons. If anyone, I'm
Nice.
dating myself, but
Hey.
okay.
Yeah, well, that's one of the cool things is you can tell it sort of what type of images that you want and get it based on that. And for some reason, it cut off all the bullets under both of these. But basically, daily operations, that's what you want to get out of. Strategic focus is where we want to go. So, no more in the weeds, no more answering all the phone calls, no more handling all the issues with vendors and the clients and all the things. Let's get you out of all of that and into more of a business owner role and not just a business ragged role. So the power of delegation, it's important to acknowledge here we have a pyramid shape, but that's because folks, that's just because this is a larger number of people and this is a smaller number of people. This isn't about hierarchy. It's about really finding what EOS calls entrepreneurial operating system. We'll get into that in a minute, but they call right people, right seats. So really finding the superstar for each role, like who really owns that role, loves that role? Who are the people that love being in daily operations? Who are the people that just are naturally great at customer service, or whatever it is that fits under this number 3? And then we identify who are the folks who can execute your vision and strategy. Who are the folks that can take this information that sorry, I'm going to turn off my heater. It's very loud. But this is the team that's between you and the boots on the ground. So it's not about dumping tasks. It's about empowering others to own those outcomes. When it's done right, it creates capacity for everyone to contribute at their highest level. You're constantly elevating the folks that you're delegating your responsibilities to. You're giving them more opportunities and you more opportunities. So neither mindset nor systems alone will work. You need both working together to create lasting change. You're shifting from I need to do this to who should own this. And then you're building the structure that gives them the ability for autonomous decision making and that accountability and that ownership that I mentioned. And then the hardest part is this part, trusting the process. That's where you really have at some point you have to just let go, and you can do it one person at a time, you can do it little by little, but this is honestly where I see the most challenge for business owners. And once they get to the place where they really feel like they can trust their team, that's when the business takes off, and it's beautiful to see. Okay, so here's the next book, Traction, by Gino Wickman. He's the creator of the entrepreneurial operating system that I mentioned. Great book for someone who wants to get some ideas on how to run your business on a more of a system. This is just one of the many tools in that toolbox, Delegate and Elevate. Really simple tool. You can find it and print it out, or you can just, obviously create an easy chart to have on your desk. But I highly recommend having this on your desk or on your desktop, whatever works for you. And over the next couple weeks, just write in here every task that you do. You could also look back at like the last 2 weeks if you're really good at taking notes, but just write down everything that you do and see where it lands. You've got this bottom right quadrant you don't like and you're not any good at it. These are the things that ideally you're going to delegate first. Next to that, we've got you don't like, and you're, pretty good at it. Above don't like, you like it, you're good at it. And then this top left quadrant, that's where you ideally want to be spending all of your time. So this can be a really good guide as you're ready to hire. What are you hiring for? Or as you're ready to elevate your team members, what roles are you going to elevate them to? Are there any questions so far? I'm getting tired of hearing myself talk already. No? Okay.
No, I think the thing that I'm already sort of thinking about is simply like, is there a certain size of business you need to be or a certain number of team members you need to have to know when? Like my team is really small, but I'm already delegating a lot of stuff, not just the technical, but client relationships and communications and things like that, which is great. But at the same time, it's sort of like, I don't need 3 people interfacing with our bookkeeper, right? It doesn't make sense and things like that. So anyway, just sharing my thoughts. That's all.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something that can absolutely be done gradually. And you don't need to hire a full-time person to take on a simple task, right? Or even a couple simple tasks. I am all about the part-time hires or even the contractual hires, right? I've got something that you need done for 5 hours a week. Cool, bring someone on to do it. Gradually give them more responsibility. I mean, it's certainly not something that you need to build overnight. Okay, so who do you delegate to? You can see tell this is an AI image because the oar is missing and it looks like there's a little shark right there. Sorry, I just had to point that out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, but sorry, go ahead.
I love how the rower is still gripping something that's supposedly there.
I know. I
Awesome.
thought at first it was a shark fin, but then I realized no, there's just an oar missing. Anyway, I digress. So a couple more books here. Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. He's the creator of Strategic Coach, if you're familiar with that program for business owners. This is all about not worrying so much about the how and hiring people that are experts for the who, that right person, right seat that I was talking about. Good to Great by Jim Collins. He talks about having the right people on the bus. Similar kind of idea. I like to think of a rowing crew. Like if everyone's just kind of rowing at a leisurely pace or a aggressive pace, or maybe they're going forward or backward, you're just going to end up in circles. You're not going to end up at any particular point. And if you don't have, if you haven't identified what is that point on the horizon, that's essentially what's happening in your business. Everyone is just kind of going and they don't know where, and they're not going cohesively. So, for example, if you don't talk about what are your revenue goals, you might have a team member who thinks 3 years from now, we want to be making 5 million a year, and another who thinks that you want to be at 2 million a year, and another who thinks you want to be at 20 a year. They're going to be operating in very different ways if they don't know what the real goals are. So something that I love to do is use the organizational chart as a planning tool to help you prepare for different steps in that delegation process. The accountability chart is an EOS chart specifically designed so that you have what they call the visionary at the top. That's essentially the CEO. What they call the integrator reporting to that person, which is essentially the COO. And then you have operations, finance, marketing, sales. And, every business is different, but those are categories or departments that every business should really have. Here you have it's kind of hard to see, but it's like a confusing org chart. You've got like this bolded line, you've got this dotted line. You have people with like the same title reporting to another person with the same title. It's just confusing. You don't know who's really responsible for what. So what I like to do is look at where are we now? What is the current org chart? And even if this is like an E-Myth situation where you're in every single seat, still create that chart. Who owns operations? Who owns marketing? Under marketing, who's the copywriter? Who manages social media? Like all the things. And put like for real, who sits there? Is it you? Do you have an assistant that's in 5 different roles? Map that all out and then look at where do you want to go. So this can be, I've worked with businesses that have done this just like 6 months down the road. Sometimes we're looking at 5 years down the road. But where is it that you want your accountability chart to be? And then you can start to look at what's the next step. How do we start transitioning to that ideal place? So this is, here's a real world example. This is a financial publishing company that I worked with. And it's a little sloppy because it's real. But the way we did this is the founder was hitting 70 and he really needed to start getting out of the business. He was very much a bottleneck. So we looked at all the different ways that he is involved in the business and really identified, yes, he's CEO, but at the moment he was also biz dev. He was also the integrator. He was also the editor. He had all these roles that he was fully sitting in. So we just sort of color coded, okay, we want him to stay as CEO and he's going to remain as comp reporting to the CFO. But copywriter and editor, we gave these solid blues because those are the next things that we're going to hire for and hire or in this case promote, in the editor case promote, and get him out of those roles. And then the next were to hire the publishers. We had a publisher, but then we had these sort of junior publishers to report to him. And we needed to bring in the CMO. He was very involved in every single aspect of marketing, and it really slowed things down. We still grew from about 70 to 100 million while we worked together, but it could have been double that. So that's just sort of an example of how we put that together in practice. Here's another book, Rocket Fuel. This is by the same guy that created EOS. And it talks about that relationship between the CEO and the COO, or what they call the visionary and the integrator. And the reason I share this is I think it's important to be aware of personality types. Like not everyone has that visionary entrepreneurial CEO personality type, which is A-okay. You can still be a business owner. I'm a business owner. I'm very much an integrator, but it's just good to be aware of sort of the gaps in your personality type so that you know what to hire for. So for example, for me, when I had my health coaching business, I was introduced to this book, Rocket Fuel, and for me, it was like a life-changing experience because I learned about this integrator role, and it's like they were perfectly describing who I am and the thing that I always wanted to do. And I realized I was forcing myself to be a visionary when I'm really meant to be an integrator. So I gradually closed down that business as I took on more COO clients. But it was just a big aha moment for me. So visionaries, they're good at always seeing the big picture. They usually have a million different ideas. They create what we call operational whiplash, which is like you're going to your team and you're like, we're going to do this. And the next week you keep changing your mind. Like that's what the visionary needs to do. I say the role of the visionary is to kind of be off in the clouds. I want you to bring back a million different ideas. But it's the role of your second in command to help you filter through those ideas and identify, okay, what really fits with the plan. So your second in command should be really personally accountable, really good at self-management, decisive, and really good at taking those ideas that you have and either saying, nope, that doesn't fit with the plan, or maybe we pin that till next year. And then the things that you agree on, okay, let's make it happen. And then you can just go off into the clouds again, and that second in command just makes it happen for you. So if you're someone who tends to be inspirational, you're really good at those big relationships, like you're good at biz dev type stuff, then you're probably a visionary. This is a great tool. Oops. I believe it's still free. If you go to rocketfueluniversity.com/assessments, you can take the crystallizer and it will show you where you are on the spectrum between visionary and integrator, and will help you identify where are the gaps within your business that you should be hiring for. If you have a second in command, have them do it as well, and then you can see where the gaps are in your relationship, and it'll provide clarity as where you're getting stuck. Are there any questions about that?
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm glad you read all these books, so I don't have to.
I mean, I geek out on that stuff. So that's, what I do for pleasure. Look, here's 2 more. I think these might be the last 2. Okay, scaling up. Vern Harnish also wrote Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. He was a student. Gino Wickman, who created EOS, was a student of Vern Harnish. So scaling up is really for larger size businesses, but still has a lot of great tools and great information and case studies if you're into that stuff. Cameron Harold wrote Meetings Suck, much easier to read book. And it's basically just about when to call a meeting, who to call, who to invite to the meeting, agendas, all of that stuff, essentially so that you're not wasting a bunch of time in meetings and you're not, you don't have miserable clients or teammates because they're basically being pulled into things that don't feel like a good use of their time. Vern Harnish is really big on what he calls the meeting rhythm. So you have a daily huddle with your team where you get together and it has like a really super agenda. This is what I did the last 24 hours. This is what I did the next 24 hours, or what I'm going to do in the next 24 hours. And this is where I'm stuck. Should just take 5 or 10 minutes for everyone to go around and do that. And then you go on with your day. You have your weekly team meeting where you're looking at metrics, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you're looking at what are the big picture priorities that you came up with in your quarterly planning, checking in to see how you're doing on those, and then talking through any issues, opportunities, anything that came up during the week, you can put on the list for that meeting and then just get it resolved. Once a week, you're just going through and you don't need to keep having these kind of ad hoc conversations. He recommends also a monthly strategic review, which is just seeing on kind of how you're doing on your quarterly goals. And then the quarterly planning, which is when you're really looking at what are we going to get done in the next 90 days and really focusing on just kind of working in that 90-day world. I would also add annual planning to that, which is it's all the same stuff as quarterly planning, but you're also reviewing your 1-year goals and your 3-year goals. So that makes sense? Awesome. Okay, so for your metrics, ideally, everyone on the team has at least one metric that they're responsible for. This would be the main thing that they're accountable to the team for. And it's the way for everyone, when you get together on a weekly basis, if that person is essentially doing their job based on that number. So it's really important that there is a goal for that number. So usually it's for the quarter. Let's say it's a revenue goal. You might have by the end of the quarter, we've made this much, so it's a cumulative, or it might be average sales calls, for example, something like, so it doesn't, the type of metric can vary, but it's really important to have a goal rather than just following the numbers. Because if you're just reporting, you don't really know if it matters. You don't know if you're working towards something. So I added this image here because it was once introduced to me as an island question, and I like the question. It's like, let's say you're on vacation, you're on some remote island, you don't have access to anything, you were just offered another week for free, but there's one thing that you need to know in order to know that your business is still running without you. What is that one thing? Those are the kinds of things that you want to have on your scorecard.
That's dreamy.
Right? Okay, so, and hey, look, you can do it. I was just working with someone who she is a real estate investor, and she's been doing it since she was a teen, and she's now in her mid 30s. Took her first vacation away from work, not having to check in ever. So it can be done with the right team. So this is just kind of bringing it all together. I see some of the graphics didn't show up, but basically they all reinforce each other. If you have structure without mindset, it feels rigid. If you have mindset without structure, it's theoretical. The scorecard and the meeting rhythm create the stability and the accountability and the clarity that you need. So it all complements each other. Okay, so next steps. Think about, or maybe share if you have anything in mind that you might do this week, one responsibility that you could delegate to a team member, or maybe a new tool that you could implement in the next quarter, a new meeting that you might implement with your team. Does anything come to mind that you might be able to kind of take forward from this call?
One thing I'm wondering if you could speak to a little bit is some people, like whether it's podcasters I listen to or books I've read, is talks about how you need to develop like SOPs and guidance and like documents that are sort of like your way of standardizing things so that your business not only runs more smoothly and consistently, but you could set yourself up for the future when you need to sell or want to sell or something,
Yeah.
or pass off the baton that you know it's going to be operating the same. Where does that sort of fit in with what you've presented today?
Yeah, 100%. So that fits within that structure piece. I always recommend that people build their companies as if they plan to exit, because the reality is everybody's going to exit at some point. Whether
Yep.
you sell, whether you die, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone exits at some point, so you need to be prepared for that. And absolutely, SOPs are part of that. I really recommend starting with the sort of the core processes that every part of the organization is involved with. So, for example, sales, right? Like, you start with, where does a lead come in? That involves the marketing team. There's sort of, or beyond sales is like acquisition, client acquisition, like that whole process. And doing it in such a way that you're really clear on who owns what, and have that in your SOP. And then the trick is making sure that everyone follows the SOP, right? And so sometimes that means requiring your team to have it open on their desktop. If you're like, I worked with a manufacturing plant where we laminated it and attached it to the machine. It always needs to be accessible and not, just collecting dust or on some Google Drive hidden away. Does that kind of answer your question, or did you have, or
It
is there
does,
anything?
but the concern I have is that, like, while I do delegate stuff, I mean, I do consulting work. And so it's not just me who are reading RFPs and talking to clients. Everyone's doing that. We're too small for everything to be in my responsibility. So things
Mhm.
are already being delegated, but I don't really want to sit around and write SOPs. I mean,
Okay.
it's like only because I'm doing other things to run the business, right? And so,
Mhm.
or manage projects because I'm billable myself to clients, right?
Yep.
So
Mhm.
it's not that I definitely see the value in them, but so many things that we do are just customized to each client. And so sometimes we might even have an SOP that's specific to a client, which is also fine. But I could see myself writing 100 SOPs, but I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
That
Don't and don't.
sounds like
Yeah.
a horrible experience.
I have a couple tips for you. One is there's a tool called Scribe, another AI tool that if you are doing that, if the SOP is something you're doing within software or just on your screen,
Mm,
Scribe will take images and write it for you. So that's a great tool. Otherwise, I recommend doing a video. Like let's say I don't know. It's like if you're walking through something with a client, like let's say you're talking through your onboarding process with a client, just get your client's permission to record the call and then take that transcript and put it into a program to create an SOP that writes out your onboarding process, and then you can just kind of go through and edit. There's just
mhm.
there's some shortcuts out there for sure. And it's people go down these rabbit holes of SOP creation projects where all they're doing for like a year, it seems like, is creating an SOP, and then again they just collect dust. Nobody follows them. It's a giant waste of time. So yeah, the most important piece is that they're actually being followed.
Yeah. I have flashbacks from helping a manufacturing company back in the 1990s implement ISO 9001. And I must have wrote several hundred SOPs. I mean, just like, I don't
That
really
sounds like a
ever,
nightmare.
yeah, I don't really want to ever do that again. So, yeah.
Uh, Whitney, I saw you're updating your job title from founder/CEO to just CEO immediately. I love it. That's awesome. Uh, right on. You got to own it, right? I have a couple links to share with you all. I saw that Rob put the assessment in there. Thank you. Let me just go back to my slides real quick. Oh, that's right. I can't get I didn't have my notes. Okay, so I'm going to, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to shout them out now. I'm going to grab a couple links so you have them.
Will you be sharing the slides afterwards, Genevieve?
I'm happy to do that. Honey, do you normally do that? Is Honey still with us? Oh, I'm sure that we can figure out a way to get you the slides.
Okay. And then another one is I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your process and how we would connect with you to see if we might be a good fit to work together.
Yeah, for sure. I'll also put in here my scheduling link. And then if anyone has any further questions, you're happy to schedule with me whether there's potential for working together or not. I have a pretty great network. So if people are, looking to delegate, and I'm not the person, I'm happy to introduce you to a potential person. I also want to mention that I'm the vice president of the ORPIB Foundation Board. So if you're interested in learning more about the mentorship program or our business incubator program, I'm happy to connect with you about that. Also, I just with the co-leads founded a local chapter of an organization called the Entrepreneurial Networking Resource Group. It's based on EOS, but it's not a requirement that people run their business on EOS, but it's essentially anyone who is sort of curious about having an operating system in their business or running their business on an operating system and either owns the business or is a second in command, they're welcome to join us. I will put information about that as well. There's no cost. And we meet once a month. We go over some sort of tool, like some of the tools we talked about today, like the accountability charter, Delegate and Elevate. And then we spend an hour going through like that issues list that I was talking about, the weeklies that people just bring their business issues to the group and we brainstorm and solve them together. So I'll put that information here too. This is that's the link for the national organization, so you can get a better idea about the group. But if you would like to know more, find a link that actually works. But if you'd like to know more about what's happening locally, feel free to just reach out to me about that as well. I'll stick by email as well.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
One of your early slides, you talked about build the structure, create frameworks that enable autonomous decision making. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, what does that mean? Like, I understand, like, I might make a guidance document or an SOP to all my staff about client interaction so they can sort of take that on themselves, or how to set up something in our accounting system, like a new project and whatever. I get that part, but like build the structure, create the frameworks.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the ways, and this, I'm glad you asked because I didn't even touch on this at all, is one of the things that you can do in your strategic planning is look at core values. So when you get really clear on what are your core values and what are the core values that you're bringing to your business, then you're hiring people that share those core values. And when they get a little stuck on making a decision, those core values kind of become the North Star for what is the right move. So that's first of all. Second, with the accountability chart, the idea is that you're putting about 5 bullets of what that person is accountable for. So that helps guide autonomy, right? Like if you're responsible for accounts payable, you're responsible for accounts payable, right? And everybody else can see that chart and they know who's responsible for it. Same thing with the scorecard. It's just another tool to really get clarified. You always put who owns each metric. So it's just another tool that helps support that. And then the more you keep coming around to those tools and sort of keep reiterating, this really is the guide that we're using. These really are the core values that we believe in. And you have those kind of like everywhere. People just become more autonomous, and the more you sort of redirect them back to the tool, the more they learn that they can make decisions on their own and they don't need to come to you for all the things. Does that answer your question?
It does. But being an engineer, I need like practical, very practical. So appreciate the descriptions here.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Well, and it's like, I went through about a dozen books and gave you 3 highlights from both ones or from each one or something. So, there's a lot more in my brain than on the deck. So I'm happy to answer any other questions or further clarify because things always make more sense in my head.
I have a question about you have in that org chart, you have the CEO, you have the COO, and then you have other people below.
Mhm.
Just from that org chart by itself, it seems like the CEO is kind of removed from the rest of the organization. There's not as many touch points. And I just imagine, like, as a founder now, like, for me, it's really valuable to stay close to customers and have customer conversations a lot. How does is the org chart just not represent those types of activities, or how how does the CEO stay connected to like what's really mattering that's more on the ground?
Yeah. I love that question, and there's several ways. One is part of the CEO job description is to be bringing in those big clients and to be maintaining those larger relationships. So anyone that's like a potential partner in the marketplace or that, is a quote unquote whale, you would absolutely maintain those relationships as you grow, and the people that report to you would maintain the ones that have a sort of a smaller dollar value attributed to them. That said, if you're in a situation today where you're doing client work beyond that, that's fine. You would just put yourself in that seat on the chart. So you're both CEO and your customer service, client relations, whatever it is that you're calling it, with the idea that hopefully eventually you would get fully to CEO, and then you're just really focusing on those more significant relationships. The COO is the person who brings that important information back to you. So the COO is responsible for all the cross-departmental organization. The COO is responsible for knowing what's going on at every level of the organization, and anything significant that is happening gets reported back to you. So the idea is you are a little bit removed because you're not necessarily having to be in every leadership team meeting. You're not necessarily having to take, quarterly projects like everybody else on the team does because you're, in the clouds, right? I just had another point I was going to make. I forgot it. But does that sort of answer your question? I mean, the truth is that you are a little bit removed. And I know what else I was going to say. When in larger organizations, something that I will often do is, like maybe every 6 months, is I will do a anonymous survey. I do this one-on-ones in smaller organizations, but in larger ones, I just answer what's working, or I'm sorry, what should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we start doing? And get that input from everyone in the organization. And what I found is the people that are like boots in the ground are having much more insightful observations than the people on the leadership team because they're so close to the action. So I agree. It's really important to keep getting that information. It's just you're getting it through a different path so that you're not having to have 50 different touch points throughout your organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm coming at this from like, it's just me. I'm an early stage startup. I'm in a very like innovative stage. Probably a lot of changes are going to happen. So it's hard for me to think in terms of that, like that fixed, like established org chart and being at the, being visionary and directing rather than being involved. So yeah, that's helpful to hear.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I would say enjoy this phase of your business. I mean, really get to know those clients. Yeah, that's going to give you the most information that's going to give you very valuable information as you grow when you're getting those client touch points and you're really hearing what are their pain points, what's working for them. Like, absolutely, you should be, very involved with your clients at this point.
Yeah.
And hopefully not forever, right? It's temporary, unless you want to be a solopreneur, which is a totally different thing and fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a different model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I think the one thing I'm struggling with is conceptually just in my head is like, how much does one take on when you're only 3 employees? And then if I hire 1 or 2 more and I'm now at 3 or 4 or 5 versus when I'm 10 versus when I'm 20, because I don't have a marketing department. I don't have a sales department. I don't have a financial receipts department. I just have a bookkeeper, me,
but you do have all of those things.
I have all those functions. I just don't have those departments. If I made an org chart with those departments, it would look ridiculous.
It'd all say Rob. Yes, I understand.
It'll say Rob.
Yeah.
a little side thing to a CPA, a little side thing to a bookkeeper. I do
Yeah.
have a firm that I use for marketing, like for proposals and things, but
Okay.
I only use her to formulate like, very competitive proposals, as opposed to like, I'm the one who go talks to the client and finds out who's the next opportunity. And frankly, so do my 2 employees. It's not like I'm the only one who does that.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that, because what I would be interested in understanding is, how do I move from where I'm at now and incrementally build that up? Because it's not like I'm going to sit there and do this huge strategy session and talk about organizing the company when it's only 3 of us, right? So it's like,
So
and I'm not going to write 50 SOPs or guidance
right,
documents when there's only 3 of
right.
us, right? But there are
Okay.
probably things I can do or should do now to set me up for the next part and the next part and the next part, right?
Yeah.
So,
So I'm going to answer your question, then I'm going to give you an anecdote. So I would start with the delegate and elevate. Just have that on your desk. Write down everything that you do. Find the stuff that you hate the most or that you're just not very good at, and that's what's next. Even if it's just a very part-time person, just start chipping away at those. You will feel a huge sense of relief when you get those things off your plate.
mm,
So that's a good place to start. And there's some great offshore resources if you want to keep it a low budget item. There's and I'm happy to introduce you to some if you'd like. Here's my anecdote. This is a feel free to make fun of me. This is a goofy, embarrassing thing that I did, but I am building out an agency, and I realized I was thinking as a solopreneur, I go through all these strategic planning sessions with my clients. I did one all by myself for 3 hours. I recorded it. I talked to myself, and I went through the whole thing, and it was so eye-opening. And it was, I got a really solid plan in place. I can totally see the point on the horizon. So if I can do it by myself,
yes,
maybe
but
consider doing it with 3 people. There's some great tools online, like EOS has what's called the Vision Traction Organizer. It kind of walks you through what to go through. It's just a 2-page plan. Scaling Up has one called the 1-page strategic plan. You can use those as like a guide to kind of start those conversations.
and so I went to this website, ENRG, and what is ENRG and what is EOS, which seems to be
So
a registered trademark?
ENRG is the Entrepreneurial Networking Resource Group. EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System that I mentioned earlier that was created by Gino Wickman, the guy who wrote Traction and Rocket Fuel. So it was designed, or that was the organization was created to support companies who run on EOS and to introduce people who run on EOS. I will say I don't run my business on EOS. None of my clients run their business on EOS, and I'm one of the leaders of this group. So it's really not a requirement that EOS is part of your business. What the important part, I think, is the idea of running your business on an operating system. So you have kind of a cohesive set of tools that complement each other. And this is the place where you can learn about those tools, and more importantly, where you can just bring issues that you're having in your business, problems that you want to solve, or opportunities that you want to talk through. And it's just a group of other Portland entrepreneurs that are there to support each other. I would think probably about half of them are involved in EOS and the other half are not, or maybe they are sort of, like they have their toe in the water, so to speak.
Cool. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, we got 3 minutes left. Any other quick questions? Marilyn, you're very welcome.
Yeah, this is super helpful. And so how do people engage with you now? I mean, certainly you could set up, you put calendar in there, but how do you operate? Do you like, we develop a scope of work like you're a subcontractor like anyone else and decide what we're going to do and then do that? Is that how you work?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we
Okay.
talk about what are the pain points that you're wanting to solve, and then we look at sort of size of contract and what we can get done within your budget and go from there.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds great.
Marilyn, do reach out to me about Incubator. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. And everyone else, please feel free to hop on my calendar, send me an email. Appreciate your time.
Awesome.
All right,
Genevieve,
have
thank
a
you
good
so
one.
much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Very
Take care.
welcome.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
y'all.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah. See y'all next week.